Hi everyone, resin time! Yes, we are going to make a resin geode again, and in this video I am going to use my challenge colors, which are green. As you might know, green is one of those colors that I cross out in so many of my artworks because I don't really feel that comfortable using green when it comes to a good result. So I wanted to challenge myself and using greens to make this geode painting, and the size of this MDF board is about 31 by 33 centimeters. I taped it again with duct tape, so this is the elevated structure you can see around this MDF board. Yeah, it's just tape. It's super cool because it sticks to every surface, but it does not stick to the resin once it's cured. So this is really handy because you can just peel it off in the end, and you will see me peel it off in the end here as well. And yeah, it's really cool. So it prevents your resin from flowing over the edges, which really helps by doing these geodes, and yeah, it keeps everything in place. As usual, when I make these geodes, I painted the surface with an acrylic paint just to seal the surface and to have a darker underlayer. This was the darkest green that I had available. I really wished for something darker, so like a really dark, almost black kind of green, but I did not really have such a green, and I didn't really want to mix black into it to make it darker because, yeah, you know. So I used this one for the underlayer painting and I ordered myself some darker green just to have it here if I want to give it a next try someday. The design that you're going to see is basically one of the designs that I prefer for those smaller artworks. I will have some larger geode artworks coming in the future. I'm currently working on those, but as these are pretty small sizes, I think this is one of the designs I feel most comfortable with in creating it and looking at it in the end. So as the first video that I made in this design was one of my most favorite videos here on my channel, I think the design is pleasing to the public. So let's see what the green does. Along of this video I will also answer some of your questions that I'm frequently getting in terms of the materials that I'm using and techniques that I'm using. So if you have seen other videos of mine, you might want to skip this or just listen to my voice telling you all the stuff again. So yeah, in the very beginning I make the initial design, and this is more or less just shifting and tilting all these glass nuggets, glass shards, whatever, and stones over the surface of the MDF board. This will give you an impression how the design will look in the end before you even have the first drop of resin on there. And in the very middle, as I did here as well, I made a blob of golden mica flakes. This is the paste that you can see me using here, and it looks like beige as long as it's wet, but when this stuff dries it really gets crystal clear and golden. So there are golden flakes in there, little small 2mm, 1mm glitter flakes, which look really golden in the end. This is awesome because I can make this in the middle and put clear glass onto it, which will dry golden in the end, and you can see it through the glass itself. And you can see the real stuff in between the gaps between the glass nuggets. You know what I mean? You will see in the end in the close-up. So this really comes handy and works great. And I have a couple of tiny glass shards as well, which I put around there just to have a more or less transition line, to not have only these large glass stones and then directly transition to the resin area, you know, just like having more structure there. And the black stuff that you can see are just stones. I have ordered them from Amazon. I think they are just regular small stones which are spray painted black. This is what they appear to me. You can look at your Amazon as well, or in whatever decoration store. This stuff comes pretty often and it's not really expensive. So this is really something nice to use, and they come in different colors, so pick the ones that you love. And normally I tell this in the end, but not everyone watches until the end, so I will tell this just here right now. All the materials that I am using are linked below in the video description. They are linked to my German Amazon affiliate store, but at least you can see the product there and you can look it up on your Amazon as well. The golden mica flake paste is pretty pricey, but it really lasts a long way. So I got this 1 kilogram bottle last year and it's only a third or quarter empty now. So I really have much of this left and it really goes a long way and I use it pretty often. So really cool stuff. And as you can see here, I also used it for an outer area around these darker stones. This has the advantage that it glues them into place, more or less. And it has a cool effect again, though, because it's gold. You know, gold is great. But it doesn't really fit to every color. So if you have blues and such, I would rather go for a silver than for a gold, because I don't know, it just feels more natural for me. So I did have some artwork where I mixed blues and the golds, of course, which is a more royal look. But in these geode paintings, I don't know. Perhaps I should try it. I don't know. But from my perspective, when I was asked, I would opt for silver first before using gold. I don't know. Give it a try. Give it a try. And if you might wonder, I said I'm going to go for a green color palette here, but I used some of these purple glass stones. This doesn't really count here. The good thing is with the resin, these clear glass nuggets just take the color that is underneath. So this time they are going to be golden in the middle and take whatever color of resin you pour over or around them, under them. And the same with these smaller glass shards as well. Although they look purple here, once I have added the green to it, they are green. So you won't see the purple anymore in the end. But I just did not have any of these small glass shards in clear, so I just used those, just in case you were wondering. When you've made your design and you added some red materials like this mica paste here, you should let this dry first before you go on pouring your resin over it. You can also glue down these glass shards or stones to your canvas or your MDF board. I did this in previous videos as well, so I used PVA glue and glued everything together just to hold it in place. If you have everything just loosely on your MDF board and you pour the resin over it, everything can flow around and move a bit. So this is something you can prevent by gluing it down. If so, use a PVA glue that is clear drying. And when the initial design is done and everything is clear, you need to make up your mind about the colors that you want to use. I suggest not using more than 2 or 3 different colors for those smaller resin geode paintings to not make it too hectic and stressful to look at. Yeah, and then it was time to mix the resin. Actually for this one here I used the art resin because this was the only resin that I had left at this point, and it is totally up to you which kind of resin you want to use or which resins are available to you. The art resin, for example, is quite nice for larger projects because it has about 30 to 45 minutes working time until the resin is starting to get thicker, which is cool when you have large areas to pour and to tweak and to play around with. I recently just came across the resin from Resinate, which they have sent over to me to test out, and I really love it. It only has 15 minutes working time, so only a third of the working time that the art resin has, but especially for those smaller canvases it works really great. Because you have less time to worry that everything is flowing around and moving, and it also cures way quicker. So this Resinate resin cures in about an hour and is more or less dry. It's still sticky, but it's dry and not moving anymore. Where the art resin is taking up to 4 hours until everything is really settled to not move around that much. And what I normally do is in these smaller paintings, when I use the art resin, that I'm going to wait more to the end of the working time. So I mix it up, I let it sit for about 25-30 minutes. This has the advantage that most of the air bubbles are already gone from itself. And then I start working with these. Background, I normally suck at getting these artworks level, so I had the issue that the resin was flowing around for a couple of projects that I did. I recently got a water scale, so I do have it level now, but I just got to the habit of being on the safe side, you know? It adds a bit of stress, of course, to the entire thing, because you never know when the resin is going to curing and getting thicker. This also depends on the materials that you mix into it. If you use resin pigments, which are designed to go into the resin, you will not have any issues with the curing times. If you use acrylic paints, you can use between 5 to 10% of the amount of the resin. So 5 to 10% the amount of the acrylics that you use the amount of the resin. So if you have too much of the acrylic paint mixed into it, it will still work, but you have to work quickly because the resin is going to gum up really quickly. And if you're not careful and have a large amount of resin mixed with the acrylics, it's going to heat up massively. So you really cannot touch it even more if you're unlucky. So make it quick if you have added too much of the acrylics, and 5 to 10% is really enough. And when you use just pure pigment, so pigment powder, you can basically use how much of the pigments that you want, because it does not change the resin at all. So you can use as much as you want. Same with the glitter powders. But as a background information, the more glitter or pigments you mix into it, the thicker your resin is going to become, which is okay, of course, and logical. And so if you want to tweak the thickness of your resin, just to make it flow less, for example, you can add more of the pigments. So whatever your approach are going to pick, I have told you a couple of different approaches now. Just use the one that you feel more comfortable or most comfortable with. I tried them all and I switch in between all of them. When it comes to the colors that I've used here, this is a green metallic acrylic paint, which is the outer ring. And for the inner ring, this is more or less an olive green, which was not as dark as I needed it. So I added a couple of drops of black acrylic paint into it as well, which I actually wanted to avoid, but I didn't have anything as dark as I needed it. So this was my backup plan, so to speak. The middle circle is basically a green powder pigment, and I added some drops of neon green and neon yellow into this because I wanted this to be lime green, so something more or less outstanding color-wise. And then I just poured everything into place. You have different options that you can tweak your pours with. You can use a straw, which I've used here, to intermix the colors a bit and to make them feather out. You can just leave them as they are and see what happens. You can use a torch and torch over them. This will pop the air bubbles that are sitting in the resin, which you should do anyways to have a smooth surface in the end. But this will also liquefy the resin more and move it around. It can have a good result. It can have disadvantages because you cannot really control it anyways. So it's always a bit risky and tricky, and you never know what the end result is going to look like. Especially if you pour your resin once it is thinner, so not really on the cured side already. And in the end, as I thought the inner ring looks a bit boring and too plain, I added a layer of white paint into this as well. So I had some of the resin left that I poured into there. So I mixed a couple of drops of white resin pigments in there and poured a circle and blew it around with a straw. So this added a bit more depth to the entire piece, and then I liked it more. I hope you agree with me. And then it just has to wait until everything is right. At the next day, when everything was ready, I removed the tape, which you can see here as well. And this is pretty easy done. So normally nothing sticks really to the tape itself. You can just peel it off and everything is great. You will have some kind of lip of the resin, which is going towards the tape, which is called Capillary Effect. And this is something you cannot really avoid. And when it comes to this, you have actually 3 options how to fix this. Option 1, leave it as it is. Option number 2 is using a cutter knife and cutting it down. You won't really see that much that you've cut it there, but be careful to not cut into your artwork itself. Or option number 3 is putting a clear coat of resin over it, which can be tricky. Because you must be sure that the lip is almost the same height at the entire piece and has no leakage areas, so areas where the lip is broken, for example, and the resin could flow out. If everything is completely safe, you can just pour a clear coat of resin over it to make it level to the lip, and then everything is even. But it will also reduce the amount of texture that you have on your artwork, because the next layer of resin, you know? So this is totally up to you. So the final steps were deciding if I want to add lines with the Posca markers or if I don't. Sometimes I do feel they add to the piece, sometimes I think they don't. It is always a tricky decision to do, because sometimes you add them and then you think it looked better before. It's up to you as well. If you are uncertain if you want to add them or not, you can make a photo, use a photo editor program and just paint them digitally and see if it works. If you do so, pick some colors that fit to the piece. For me, I used a couple of greens. I think it was 2 different greens and a gold. You can see me using the Posca markers here. If you don't have any Posca markers, you can use the addings. They come in a couple of colors as well, like white, black, gold and silver, which are pretty handy and they work great. If, as a side tip, you have made these lines and you decide that you messed up and that it doesn't look as good as you hoped, you have the alternative to remove them. Officially, they are non-removable, so this is true, so you cannot really remove them when they are dried. But when you use regular paint thinner, you can more or less remove them again. It does not work perfectly with every color, so with some colors you will have some marks on your resin anyways, which you cannot remove. So test this on a scrap piece perhaps first. But most of them I was able to remove completely using some drops of paint thinner and sponge. Something soft though, yeah, nothing really scratchy. And yeah, this is a tip you can use if you messed up something. And this sums up everything I can tell you about this project here. And I really like the end result. I like the greens. I really got happy that I tried a green version, and this is really rare. It was one of the first and rare artworks that I did in pure greens. So really happy about this one, and I hope you liked it as well. Let me, of course, as usual, know what you think about it, if you like the design and the colors and everything. If I missed any of your questions, please feel free to ask them again in the description box, and I will answer them directly or in one of the next videos. So if you're new to my channel and liked what you've seen here, please give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel as well and share this with all your friends and family and everyone you know who might want to have a look at this or all my other videos. And if you're new, please make sure to also have a look at my older videos. So there are already a ton there that you might want to have a look at as well. So again, thanks for your time, thank you for watching, and other than that, I hope to see you in my next videos. Have a great day. Bye bye.